Under the vast branches of the Bodhi tree, sunlight filtered through leaves, illuminating the gathered disciples and their teacher. A troubled seeker approached Buddha. Eyes cast downward, his steps hesitant, as if weighed by a burden invisible to others. "Master," he began, voice trembling, his emotions brimming, "I have wronged my brother, and guilt consumes my every waking moment." Buddha's gaze softened, his serene presence enveloping the seeker with an unspoken reassurance, a silent promise of understanding and compassion. "Speak, child," Buddha said gently, his voice like a calming stream, soothing the seeker's turbulent thoughts and restless heart. "I fear my confession will demand sacrifices too great, compromises that render truth meaningless." The seeker confessed with growing anguish. "Confession," Buddha began, his tone steady yet compassionate, "is a healing act, not a compromise, but a liberation from hidden chains. Yet, Master, what if my truth alters my path irreparably, leaving me with choices I cannot endure?" The seeker asked. "Truth," Buddha said, his hands resting calmly on his knees, "does not alter paths, it reveals them, lighting the way forward. By withholding truth, you endure the shadow of guilt, which binds your spirit, clouding the clarity of your existence." Buddha explained. The seeker's breathing grew heavier as he wrestled with the depth of Buddha's words and the decision waiting in his heart. "Master, how does one find courage to expose the truth when its consequences remain unknown and fear overwhelms the soul?" he asked. "Courage arises not from certainty, but from surrender," Buddha said. "From trusting the truth to guide without clinging to outcomes, but surrender feels like weakness." "Master," the seeker replied, his voice cracking under the weight of his internal conflict. "To surrender is strength," Buddha assured him. "It is letting go of resistance and allowing wisdom to flow without obstruction." The seeker remained silent, his brow furrowed, as tears welled in his eyes. His vulnerability laid bare before his teacher. "Child," Buddha said, his voice unwavering, "what burdens your heart most is not confession, but the fear of impermanence and loss." The seeker's head snapped up, startled by Buddha's words, their clarity piercing the fog of fear clouding his mind. "Truth carries loss not as punishment but as transformation, an evolution, leading you closer to the freedom of enlightenment," Buddha added. The gentle rustling of leaves seemed to echo Buddha's wisdom, the Bodhi tree swaying as if alive with universal understanding. "Master," the seeker asked, "how do I know my confession will bring peace and not further suffering to my brother?" "To confess is to trust the inherent compassion within others, even when fear blinds us to their ability to forgive," Buddha said. "But what if forgiveness never comes?" the seeker whispered, his fear palpable, his doubt raw and overwhelming in its intensity. "Forgiveness, child, is neither promised nor demanded," Buddha replied. "Its absence does not negate your liberation through truth." The seeker's shoulders slumped, his thoughts circling the depth of Buddha's wisdom, searching for clarity to embrace the daunting path ahead. "Master, will you guide me? Should I falter along this journey, blinded by fear and the weight of consequences?" he asked. "My guidance is the teachings themselves," Buddha said. "They live within you, awaiting recognition and the quiet strength of realization. But the teachings feel distant when fear overshadows the mind's capacity to listen." "Master," the seeker replied, voice heavy with resignation, "fear is the veil, child, that cloaks truth's light," Buddha said, "and the act of confession begins lifting that veil." The seeker nodded slowly, his heart trembling, his mind still questioning, yet touched by the quiet resonance of Buddha's words. "Master, how did you find the courage to speak truth when confronted by rejection, loss, and misunderstanding along your journey?" he asked. "Attachment," Sonda repeated, confusion flickering across his features. The Buddha nodded. Compassion, Master? The seeker asked, his voice curious now, a spark of clarity emerging amidst his emotional turbulence. Compassion sees suffering not as failure but as a shared condition, urging truth and healing to bridge our separations, Buddha explained. By clinging to guilt, child, you deny compassion to yourself and those you seek to reconcile with, Buddha said. Gently but firmly. But how do I begin forgiving myself when shame continues tightening its grip upon my spirit? Master? The seeker asked. Forgiveness begins in recognizing your humanity, Buddha said. For each misstep is an opportunity to learn, grow, and deepen compassion. The seeker gazed upward, his eyes catching the glimmer of sunlight filtering through the Bodhi tree's leaves, as if it offered solace. Master, the seeker said after prolonged silence, I wish to confess, to embrace truth as liberation rather than compromise. Buddha smiled, his expression gentle yet radiant, the wisdom of countless lifetimes reflected in the light dancing upon his face. Go, child, Buddha said, his words imbued with quiet strength. Speak truth not to be absolved but to live authentically within impermanence. The seeker bowed deeply, the gravity of Buddha's teachings guiding his resolve toward reconciliation and the unburdening of his heart. As you confess, remember, Buddha said, his voice a soft melody. Truth does not demand perfection, but humility and the courage to change. With trembling hands, the seeker placed his palms together, his gratitude flowing freely, tears streaming down his cheeks like cleansing rain. The disciples watched in reverence, the silent exchange between Buddha and the seeker illuminating their own hearts with shared understanding. As the seeker departed, the rustling leaves seemed to whisper universal truths. The Bodhi tree's presence timeless and eternal in its wisdom. Buddha's gaze lingered upon the horizon, his silence speaking volumes, an embodiment of compassion and enlightenment beyond the boundaries of language. The disciples sat in quiet reflection, their hearts touched by the teachings, the depth of truth resonating within their souls. Under the Bodhi tree, life continued its rhythm, the timeless cycle of impermanence carrying forward the echoes of Buddha's profound wisdom. Another day, another dawn under the Bodhi tree, its shade a sanctuary for those seeking guidance from the awakened one. A disciple approached Buddha, his expression both eager and uncertain, as though carrying a question too vast for words. Master, the disciple began, bowing low, his hands pressed together in reverence. What is the greatest teaching of all? Buddha's eyes met the disciples, his gaze steady and kind, reflecting the depth of wisdom accumulated through lifetimes. But suffering arises from resistance to what is. What should I do? Blessed One? Sanda asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Master, he asked, his tone cautious. How does one attain this realization when the mind is so often clouded by distractions? Buddha inclined his head, the soft breeze playing with the hem of his robes as he prepared to respond. Clarity, Buddha replied, is cultivated through mindfulness, the unshaken attention to the present moment, free from judgment or grasping. But Master, the disciple continued, why does the mind cling to distractions, pulling us away from peace and understanding? The mind, Buddha said, is like a restless monkey, leaping from branch to branch, seeking fruit where there is none. How, then, do we still the restless monkey? Master? The disciple asked, his expression now earnest with longing for answers. Through practice, Buddha said, his voice steady, repeatedly guiding the mind back to the present, training it as one trains an ox. The disciple nodded slowly, pondering the metaphor, though a flicker of doubt lingered in the corner of his eyes. Master, he asked, even with practice, I struggle. The past and future seem to hold me in their relentless grip. The past and future, Buddha said, are illusions. Only the present holds truth. To dwell elsewhere is to invite suffering. Yet, Master, how do we escape the pull of these illusions when their grip feels unbreakable? The disciple implored. By observing them, Buddha explained, as one observes clouds passing in the sky, understanding they have no permanence or substance. The disciple's brow furrowed as he absorbed Buddha's teachings, still feeling the weight of his unanswered questions pressing upon him. Master, he said, does understanding impermanence ease the pain of loss? Or is it merely another way to endure it? To understand impermanence, Buddha said, is to embrace loss as a natural rhythm, not as an enemy to be feared. Even so, Master, the heart aches, and suffering persists. How does one find peace within such inevitable pain? The disciple asked. Peace, Buddha said, arises not from avoiding pain, but from accepting it with compassion, transforming it into the seed of wisdom. The disciple sat in silence, his thoughts swirling, the weight of the teachings beginning to settle into his open mind. Master, he finally said, does compassion extend only outward, or does it also apply to the self burdened by guilt and regret? Compassion, Buddha answered, is boundless. Like the ocean, it flows inward and outward, washing away judgment and nurturing understanding. Yet guilt remains. Master, the disciple admitted. It clings stubbornly, a shadow over the light of my mindfulness and compassion. Guilt, Buddha said, is the echo of attachment to a mistaken self-image. Release it, and you will find freedom. But releasing it feels impossible. Master, the disciple confessed. It tightens its grip every time I seek to let it go. Seek not to force it, Buddha said, but to understand it. With understanding, its power will dissolve, like mist under sunlight. Stay as long as you need, Kassapa said, his words sincere and unadorned. Grateful, Jada accepted the monk's hospitality and began to accompany Kassapa in his daily practices. Is there hope for those deeply entangled, Master, or are some beyond the reach of the teachings? The disciple asked. No being is beyond the reach of truth, Buddha said. Even the darkest night cannot hold back the dawn's light forever. The disciple's face brightened, a glimmer of hope emerging amidst the fog of doubt clouding his heart and mind. Master, he asked, how do we bring light to those who resist it, clinging stubbornly to the shadows of ignorance? With patience, Buddha said, and compassion. Force feeds resistance, but kindness plants seeds that grow in their own time. Master, the disciple said, does this mean we must let others suffer until they are ready to seek the truth themselves? To force understanding upon another, Buddha said, is to deny their journey. Suffering often awakens the longing for liberation. But Master, the disciple continued, what if their suffering is too great to bear? Should we not act to alleviate it? Alleviate suffering through kindness, Buddha said, but do not rob others of their lessons. Pain teaches as much as joy. The disciple fell silent, his heart and mind now heavy with the teachings, their truth both illuminating and challenging. Master, he finally said, I understand the teachings in words, yet their essence feels distant. How does one embody them fully? By living them, Buddha said. Let your every thought, word, and action reflect truth, and the teachings will become your essence. But Master, the disciple asked, how do we remain unwavering when the world tempts us with distractions and fears? Steadfastness, Buddha said, arises from clarity of purpose. Remember why you seek, and let that remembrance anchor you amidst the storms. The Buddha's voice carried the weight of the lesson as he spoke to Sanda. Kassapa replied, my kindness is not a reflection of your failings but a reflection of my nature. Every step, Buddha said, is the path. The journey is not separate from the destination but it's unfolding in the present moment. The disciple rose, his resolve steadying as Buddha's words reverberated within him, guiding his first step on the path ahead. Around them, the gentle rustling of leaves carried the echo of the teachings. The Bodhi tree standing witness to timeless truth. Another day, another sunset painted the horizon in hues of gold and crimson, casting a serene glow over the monastery. A young disciple named Ananda approached Buddha, his expression troubled, as though carrying a weight unseen by others. "Master," Ananda began, bowing deeply, his voice trembling, "I have been plagued by desires that promise joy but bring only sorrow." Buddha turned his gaze to Ananda, his eyes reflecting the infinite compassion and wisdom cultivated through lifetimes of enlightenment. "Desires, Ananda," Buddha said, "are the offspring of delusions, born from the false belief that happiness lies in external possessions or achievements. But, Master," Ananda continued, his tone laced with confusion, "why do these desires feel so real, so consuming, and impossible to resist?" "Delusions cloud the mind," Buddha explained, "just as dust settles on a mirror, obscuring its ability to reflect the truth. It thrives because it is rooted in one's own nature." "But blessed one," Sanda asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty, "what if kindness is met with harm? What if it invites betrayal?" The Buddha's expression softened, his presence as steadfast as a mountain. "But Master," Ananda pressed, his voice tinged with desperation, "the desires return again and again, despite my efforts to let them go." "Attachment to desires," Buddha said, "is like grasping at flames, believing they will warm you, but they only burn your hands. How do I release this attachment, Master?" Ananda asked, his tone pleading for a solution to his relentless suffering. "Understand the nature of desires," Buddha said. "See them for what they truly are, impermanent and incapable of bringing lasting happiness." Ananda nodded slowly, his mind absorbing Buddha's teachings, though the weight of his struggles remained heavy upon his heart. "Master," he asked, "is there joy to be found in this world? Or is all pleasure merely an illusion leading to suffering?" "Joy exists," Buddha said, "but true joy arises from within, untainted by delusions or the clinging to impermanent pleasures." Ananda's eyes widened slightly, his curiosity piqued, yet the lingering shadow of doubt remained in the furrows of his brow. "Master," he said, "how does one discover this inner joy amidst a world filled with distractions, fears, and endless attachments?" "Through the practice of detachment," Buddha explained, "by seeing the world as it is, not as your desires paint it to be." "But detachment feels cold, Master," Ananda admitted. "Does it not strip life of its meaning, its connections, and its vibrancy?" "Detachment," Buddha said, "is not coldness but clarity. It allows love and connection to flow freely, unburdened by possessiveness or fear." Ananda fell silent, his thoughts swirling, his heart grappling with the profound simplicity of his teacher's compassionate wisdom. "Master," he finally asked, "is suffering the inevitable consequence of being human, or can it truly be overcome?" "Suffering arises from ignorance and clinging," Buddha said. "By cultivating wisdom and letting go, suffering can be transcended, though not avoided entirely." "But Master," Ananda persisted, "if suffering cannot be avoided, how does one find peace amidst its inevitability and persistence?" "Peace comes," Buddha said, "not from escaping suffering, but from understanding and accepting it as part of the human experience." "Does acceptance not mean resignation, Master?" Ananda asked, his tone hesitant. "How does one accept suffering without falling into despair?" "Acceptance," Buddha said, "is not resignation. It is the doorway to transformation, the beginning of liberation from the chains of delusion." Ananda's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension in his posture easing as the seeds of understanding began to take root in his mind. Master, he asked, how do I find strength to face suffering when it feels overwhelming and insurmountable? Strength, Buddha said, is found in compassion, both for yourself and for others. Compassion softens suffering and nurtures resilience in the heart. Master, Ananda asked, his voice softer now, how does compassion for oneself differ from selfishness or self-centeredness? Compassion for oneself, Buddha explained, is the recognition of your shared humanity. It fosters humility and care. Unlike selfishness, which seeks only gratification. Ananda nodded, his heart touched by the depth of Buddha's insight, his mind striving to grasp its full implications. Master, he said, I wish to cultivate this compassion, but anger and frustration often cloud my intentions. How do I overcome these? Anger and frustration, Buddha said, are born from unmet expectations and clinging to control. Let go, and they will lose their power. But letting go is difficult. Master, Ananda admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. The mind resists, clinging tightly to its desires. The difficulty lies in resistance, Buddha said. Surrender to the flow of life, and the mind's grip will naturally loosen. Ananda took a deep breath, his heart lighter, though the journey ahead still felt daunting in its demands for transformation. Master, he said, if desires are illusions, and suffering arises from attachment, what then is the purpose of this life? The purpose of life, Buddha said, is to awaken, to see clearly, and to live with compassion, wisdom, and understanding. Ananda bowed deeply, his hands trembling slightly as he pressed them together, his gratitude flowing freely for Buddha's unyielding guidance. Master, he said, I will strive to embody your teachings. Though the path feels long and the obstacles many, each step, Buddha said, is a moment of awakening. Walk with mindfulness, and the path will reveal itself beneath your feet. Ananda rose, his resolve steadying as Buddha's words reverberated within him, lighting the way forward amidst the uncertainties of life. Around them, the gentle rustling of the leaves carried the echo of Buddha's teachings. Timeless truths carried by the wind. The Buddha paused, allowing the weight of the story to settle over his disciples. Sanda, his brow furrowed in thought, broke the silence. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.